Hearts are probably the first basic latte art design that most baristas learn. This technique is crucial for moving on to things like tulips and then even more advanced designs like swans that I'll cover in another video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to pour two different kinds of heart designs. There's going to be a block one and a ripple one, which will help show you these techniques that are incredibly useful for doing other kinds of latte art pours. I'm going to assume that you've watched my previous video on how to steam milk for latte art. If you haven't, you can click here right now and watch that first so you can get the perfect milk for doing latte art heart designs. Let's start with pouring technique. There are a few ways to hold your milk pitcher, one with your thumb on top or with your finger and your thumb on opposite sides of the rim for control. One of the most important things to practice early on is speed and technique. You can do this with water and a cup. The first is to pour water with a consistent flow rate, which means you'll have to tip steadily forwards as you pour. The next thing is to practice the height of the pour without moving where the liquid is falling. After this, you should practice tilting the cup as you pour. You need to practice this a little bit so you don't end up pouring your coffee out of the side of the cup because you're thinking of too many things. Just practice tilting as the cup gets fuller, and you'll rarely, if ever, do this once you're used to it. Don't forget to tip the cup because this will make a deeper point in the middle of the espresso for the milk to dive under. I've got another way to practice technique that I'll tell you about later on in the video. When you've got your espresso ready and your milk is perfectly steamed, you can choose how you pour your designs. The way to do this is to control the height of the pour. You'll only get a latte art design if you're pouring very, very close to the surface of the espresso. When you pour from higher than about 2 or 3 centimeters, the milk will go under the surface of the espresso and you won't see any design. This is how you control your latte art design. You pour from higher first, then close to the milk, and then you pull up and through to get the heart design. The thing is that this isn't all there is to pouring a good heart. You can get all of these parts right and still have a small clumpy heart or a big heart that doesn't have any design features. There are a lot of extra things you can do to make sure that your heart designs look really, really impressive. If you want to get a big, beautiful heart in the center of your cup, you need to start pouring your design by lowering your pitcher to touch the surface of the espresso earlier in your pour. This is one of the most common problems that I see with home baristas pouring latte art, is that they start the pour way too late and then they wonder why they have really small latte art designs. I'm not a scientist or an engineer, so I'm not going to talk too much about the fluid dynamics, but all you need to know really is that surface tension when there's a very little amount of liquid in the cup is very low, so you can push designs a lot further out and get much larger designs when you have smaller amounts of liquid in the cup. In the beginning, when I was starting in latte art, I would pour over a sink so that I could do the pull through without worrying about milk spilling over the edge. This makes it much easier to have a clean design, and you can always wipe the rim of your cup with a cloth. If you see any white coming out from the beginning of the pour, you can just pour on top of it from a height, and that will pull the milk under the surface of the espresso. When you've poured about 30 or 40% of the volume of the cup, that's when you want to start pouring your design. It can be difficult to tell when this is, but try at different volumes and you'll see what I mean about surface tension. When you start the pour earlier, you'll get a much bigger design, and if you start it later, it won't have as much ability to create a large design. This is why we tilt the cup so you can actually get the pitcher lower to the surface of the espresso. If you steamed your milk correctly, you should start seeing a design when you put the spout of the pitcher to the surface of the espresso. As you're pouring, you should be untilting your cup so as not to spill any of your design over the edge. There's seriously nothing more demotivating than pouring a really great latte art design only to see it pour and slide and stretch over the edge of the cup. When your liquid is nearing the top of the cup, you want to pull your pitcher back up to the 5 centimeter mark and then pull through quickly. Make sure you lift the pitcher up to a good height when you do the pull through, otherwise you'll end up with more of a slug than a pinch. Now, if you want to get to the next level of a latte heart design, you'll need to learn how to do the ripple. This is the other technique I told you about earlier, and there are a number of ways to practice this. Take some water in your pitcher like we did earlier and practice doing a small wiggle with your wrist. You don't want to hold the pitcher tight because you'll end up with really jagged lines or really short lines. What you want to do is you want the jug to swing like a pendulum so that it creates the wiggle design with its own momentum. You just need to keep a little bit of control with your thumb and your wrist. Practice this one a lot with just water, and then you can try it in your latte art design. Like last time, we pour from a higher height to mix the microfoam milk with the espresso, and when we're ready, put the pitcher close to the surface of the espresso. This time, as we get close, we start a wiggle. There's a lot of variation that we can do here with our flow rate and our wiggle speed. Pouring quickly with a slow wiggle will create thicker lines on the outside, so I usually do this first, and then you can speed it up to create more ripples on the inside. I really recommend that you experiment and try out different ways of doing your wiggle so you can make this heart design your own. I really hope that this video has helped you to pour beautiful latte art hearts. Practice a lot and be sure to let me know in the the comments below how your latte art hearts have been coming. Keep on practicing those hearts because the next video in this series is going to be about how to do a tulip, which requires you to do multiple hearts in a row. Make sure you're subscribed so you can see that one when it comes out. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Using the technique that I mentioned before, you can start your pour at about 5 centimeters above the top of the surface of the... When you've poured about 30 or 40% of the volume... If you steamed your milk correctly, the design should start coming out when you put If you steamed your milk correctly, you should start seeing a design when you put the spout.